everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Andrei and I do tech videos. If that's something that's interesting to you, make sure to join me on my channel where you'll find reviews about all sorts of tech products, phones, laptops, you name it. Now today I'm going to do the final review, on the M1 MacBooks. For those of you that are new here, basically I purchased a M1 MacBook Pro back in January that I've been basically using for the past 3 months to run the entire channel off of it. A very good friend of mine who also does the thumbnails for me here on the channel, she recently purchased the MacBook Air and she was generous enough to lend it to me for the past week so that I can compare the two and share my thoughts with you. Now there's a million different reviews out there for these M1 Macs because they've taken the industry by storm, and even I have an initial review here on the channel, but I think I have a slightly different view on the Macs because both myself and my friend who bought the Air, we're first-time Mac users. We've never used Macs before, and I believe that's a viewpoint that would be very interesting to share. What it means to transition to a Mac in 2021, because, well, basically this is what Apple wants. They want to sell as many of these as possible, and initial sales figures look very, very strong for both the models that I'm going to show today, which basically means there's a lot of people out there who have never used the Mac who are going to be using these as their first-time Macs ever. Now, before I get into the meat of the review, I want to say from the get-go that I am a bit biased here, but it's not really what you'd expect. So let's cue the intro and let's get started. Now I'm going to start with something that's maybe a little less obvious, but it's something that Apple is truly great at, and that's presentation. And I'm not referring just to their extremely well choreographed and presented Apple events. I'm referring to the presentation of the product. You see, Apple makes sure that even unboxing one of these things is a great experience in of itself, and they do go to great lengths to make sure that the packaging itself is actually premium, if there is such a thing. They use very good quality cardboard on the packaging, and it does feel fantastic. As you can see in the video that I've attached, I have an unboxing experience here. There's no wires going anywhere, nothing is messy, everything is well put in place, well proportioned. When I opened it, I was quite a bit impressed in the way it's packaged together, and basically it gives you a feel of solidity and quality from the very second you touch the box. The moment you've taken it out of the box, you're already going to experience one of the benefits of macOS running on the M1 chip. Basically, the Mac will turn on instantly. Both of these products are instant on computers. The instant on screen is genuinely an instant on screen, and this is consistent. So I've not had this degrade in 3 months at all, and it's something that I truly enjoyed a great deal. Now, as I've said in the intro, I'm a bit biased, but it's not really what you'd expect. I'm a bit biased against macOS itself. You see, I've been a long time Windows user, 20 plus years, and my experience with macOS isn't as smooth as I'd like it to be, because, and I'm going to attribute that straight to me. Basically, it's my fault because I have a lot of muscle memory pointing to Windows and I want it to behave like Windows, and it doesn't. My friend, on the other hand, she absolutely loves the experience with macOS, for instance. So the main takeaway here is that if you're transitioning from Windows, come with an open mind. macOS is a great, mature operating system, and it's different from Windows, and that's not a bad thing. I'm not going to say which one is better because it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they're both operating systems designed to work on your computer, and you just have to get used to the fact that macOS is slightly different than Windows. And that's it. And going back to all of those potential sales that they're going to make, Apple kind of went to great lengths to make things easy. Like the latest edition of macOS, Big Sur, which ships out of the box with these Macs, now has graphics and icons that resemble those of the iPad and the iPhone, for instance, so that it makes it a little bit easier for first-time users to get around. While we're still on the subject of software, I feel I need to address something. The Apple ecosystem, something much revered by Apple fans the world over. I'm happy to say that the mantra that they use, "it just works," well, it kind of applies here quite well. I'm going to do an entire separate video on the Apple ecosystem itself, but basically it means that because Apple controls all of its hardware and software, when it designs their products, it designs them in a way to make sure that they work fantastically well together. And the truth of the matter is, the ecosystem experience gets better the more Apple products you add to it. It's a bit addictive. It can get very expensive, but it brings some nice touches to the experience overall. I'll just give you some quick examples. For instance, if you own an iPad, you can use that as an external monitor with your Mac through Apple Sidecar. You don't have to connect them with a wire. You don't have to worry about any of that. It's just a very simple setup, a few clicks, and you're ready. I can put my phone down and open my MacBook without the worry that I'll miss a phone call or a notification or anything like that, because messages, emails and phone calls are directly routed to your Mac, so you basically can answer a message or answer a phone call without any sort of worries on your Mac. And this integration goes even a step further, like with neat little tricks. For instance, I have an Apple Watch, and you can actually hook up the Apple Watch with the MacBook to allow you to open the MacBook without ever having to use Touch ID. The Touch ID button itself is fantastic, it's quick to use, but since I've set up to unlock the Mac with my Apple Watch, I've barely ever used it. Also, sending files across through AirDrop is incredibly simple and fast, so the Apple ecosystem indeed just works. But again, keep in mind that getting into the full ecosystem and experiencing all of the benefits can get kind of expensive. Now, as we've taken them out of the box both, we can see clearly that the feeling of premium and quality that exudes through the packaging is also luckily transferred inside. So these are very high quality products, both of them, and one is cheaper than the other, but you can't really tell by just looking at them. They're very, very similar. The build quality is nothing short of superb, and this is typical of Apple. This is how they win a lot of customers. Like it or not, they make really premium feeling products, and this translates to the case of the Macs very, very well. This is the Air here, and this is the Pro. They both have very high quality finishes. These feel like durable machines, laptops that will last for years and years and years. And this is exactly what Apple has been aiming for. And this is exactly the way that they've been winning customers for years. Quality-wise, these two laptops feel a little bit better to hold and to use than their price would indicate. I mean, this is $1,300, this is $1,000. But they both feel much more expensive than that. So that's a big plus for me. Basically, the Pro comes in two options, silver and space gray. The Air comes in silver, space gray, and this gold option, in my eyes, it looks more like rose or pink. But anyway, it still looks very, very attractive nevertheless. As you can see, both of these laptops from an external viewpoint are very, very similar, and the story continues with the internals and the input and output options. So first, in terms of I/O, the big drawback is that you only have two USB-C Thunderbolt connections with either of these, plus, incredibly enough, in 2021, a headphone jack on an Apple product, and that's about it. There are no other options. If you're more interested in further I/O options, you'd be better off waiting for the M1X MacBooks that are coming this fall. I did an entire video on that. You can check it out here on the channel. I'll link it in the description below. But basically, in terms of input-output, these options are fairly limited. You need to remember one thing, that either of these two laptops will support just one 6K 60Hz external monitor. For me personally, this hasn't been a major deal because I've not used it with an external monitor per se. As I've said earlier, I've only used it with my iPad as an external monitor through Sidecar. But if multiple monitors are your thing, these may not be fantastic for that. Again, as you'll see throughout the review, these are very, very similar. There's only a couple of things separating them, and I will highlight those when we get there. First, displays. Both displays are 13.3 inch in diagonal. They have 2560 by 1600 resolution, 16 by 10 aspect ratio, and both have a 227 pixels per inch pixel density. They both support P3 white color gamut and True Tone. That wasn't available in previous generation Airs, but with the M1 upgrade, Apple upgraded the quality of the display as well. But there is one key difference here, and the first major difference between the two so far. The screen brightness on the Pro is 500 nits versus 400 on the Air. So the Air will be a little less bright than the Pro. In my use, the Pro has been fantastic and the Air has been nothing to sneeze at, okay? In terms of dimensions and size and weight, they're almost identical. Basically, this one is 2.8 pounds, I believe, and this one is 3 pounds. In grams, there's like 100-gram difference between them. Funny fact is, the Pro is actually thinner than the Air at its thickest because the Air has a slightly tapering design. It's thicker at its back, where the hinge mechanism is, and then tapers towards the bottom of the keyboard. Now, moving to the keyboards, they're the exact same for both of them. Thankfully enough, Apple has switched away from the butterfly keyboards they've used in the past. I do enjoy them. Sometimes I do find myself wishing for a little bit more key travel, but again, you can't expect too much in very thin machines such as this. There is another difference here that's worth pointing out. The trackpad in the Pro is a little bit larger than the one in the Air. To me, again, it doesn't matter so much because I tend to use them with a mouse. Now we're going to get to an area where both of these actually suffer quite a bit, and that's the FaceTime camera on board. It's basically a 720p camera in either cases. They're grainy, they're not fantastic quality. They're going to be perfectly fine for, let's say, video call, Zoom meetings, and that sort of stuff, online schooling. That shouldn't be a problem, but for anything else, you'd really be stretching it. Okay, now on to the performance of the Macs. And that's where the M1s have garnered the most attention, and truthfully so, because they are outstanding for what they are. Apple announced the M1 as the most powerful low-powered computer chip in existence, and they're pretty much spot on. Now, I'm not gonna bother you or bore you with statistics or raw numbers or stuff. I'll just give you some simple examples. I use the Pro for video editing 4K videos here for the channel, and I've had absolutely no problem with it. It is incredibly fast, it's zippy, it has no problem exporting 4K files, it has absolutely no slowdowns. I've not experienced any sort of issues with it whatsoever. I've actually been editing one of my recent videos on the Air, and I can say that it was almost as good as the Pro. And here in the performance category is where we have a major difference between the two. You see, the Air is completely fanless, it doesn't have an active cooling system, whereas the Pro does come with a fan inside. So this helps the Pro thermal throttle a lot less, whereas the Air will perform worse in long duration, high intensity tasks such as video editing. And indeed, I noticed that the Air seemed to drop a few frames in photo editing after like a 2-hour session of editing a video. It started to drop frames here and there in iMovie. But again, it hasn't been dramatically bad. It's still been mostly good, and the Air here is absolutely no slouch. I would say it's about 5-10% at maximum difference between them in terms of performance. Now, an important caveat here is, in terms of performance, these will be superseded in Apple's lineup relatively soon. Again, I'm going to refer to the M1X video that I did. The M1X chip is a successor to the M1, and it's rumored to be twice as powerful pretty much, or maybe not twice as powerful, but it will represent a significant step up in terms of performance. The important caveat to note is that it's going to be coming in new Macs, new MacBooks that are going to be 14 inch and 16 inches respectively, and my guess is those are going to be more expensive machines than the ones we have here. We'll get into that towards the later part of the video, but if you want one today and raw performance is the one that you're interested in, then the Pro will be the better choice. But the Air is also fantastic, and it's going to be the best choice for 90% of the people out there. More on the performance front, these are both base configurations, so they both come with 8 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. The base models are going to be perfectly fine. If you're going to do resource-intensive tasks, then the 16 gigabyte options would be better, obviously. In terms of storage, as I've said, they both come with 256 gigs of storage, which is minimal in modern laptops, I would say. It's not satisfactory. You can upgrade, but the upgrades are rather expensive. I actually did a whole video here on the channel. You can check that one out as well. I use an external SSD with my MacBook, and it's been perfectly adequate for me. And also remember here that the increased storage option has the exact same price in the Air and in the Pro, so no matter which model you go for, stepping up in terms of storage or RAM is going to come with the exact same added costs. Another slight difference here in terms of performance is that this has the 8-core GPU, whereas this is the base Air and has the 7-core GPU. It's not a big difference. I wouldn't worry about it too much. I don't think it's such a tremendous difference between the two. Suffice to say that they're good for what they are, and they are good for the tasks at hand, day-to-day usage. As I've said, 4K video editing, a bit of rendering if needed, but I wouldn't go much above that. Now it's time to touch upon what I think is the key selling feature for both of these, apart from the performance. So remember, the performance is fantastic. Well, usually in a laptop, when you have very high performance, you usually end up having very poor battery life when you're away from the charger, right? That's not the case here. Both of these machines have incredible battery lives. Apple rates the Air for 17 hours of usage and the Pro for 20 hours. I don't know what tests they did. I'm just gonna give you the usage that I've been getting from them and the battery life that I've been getting with my particular usage. So as an example, doing video editing on the Pro, which is a very resource intensive, so it's not going to be particularly good on battery life. I charged it to 97% battery capacity, and then I proceeded to edit videos for about 3.5, 4 hours, and the battery was still 56% today when I opened it up for this review. So I would be able to edit videos for roughly 8 hours before the battery would give out. 4K video editing in iMovie is taxing the CPU a bit. I'm using a lot of memory, a lot of swap memory. So this is a rather intensive task. In normal browsing, so just using this for browsing, it's comfortably a 2-day machine. Now, in case of the Air, my friend uses hers for her basic day-to-day work, which means usually she remotely logs onto a Windows machine and pretty much does her day-to-day job. And she used this in the first day when she got it. For a full working day, it was charged to 100% before she started using it. And by the end of the day, after 8+ hours of work, it still had about 50 to 60% of the battery left. So both of these are going to have absolutely fantastic battery life. An important other aspect that very few people seem to talk about when comparing this to a Windows computer is whenever I take my Windows laptop out of the charging brick, a few seconds, the monitor goes completely dark, the CPU gets slowed down to a crawl, and basically the whole machine becomes a lot less useful than usual. You're not going to experience that in either of these two Macs. Basically, whenever you unplug them from the charger, you're just going to have a slight dimming of the screen, and that's about it. That's the only thing that you're going to notice. In terms of battery life, these are pretty much setting the industry standard as of today. For me personally, this has been a tremendous sell point in getting the Mac in the first place, because I cherish the mobility that it brings. Going back to my previous comments about an external monitor, I don't use an external monitor because I like the flexibility and the mobility that comes with using a laptop. This gives me the ability to take the laptop anywhere and do my work and not worry about having it plugged in. Now on to the final part of the video. Should you consider buying either one of these? Which one would be better for you? Which should you go for, or which you shouldn't go for? First, let's get the easy stuff out of the way. Who shouldn't buy any of these? Well, basically, there's a couple of categories that I can think of right off the bat. So first of all, if you're a gamer, someone who takes gaming seriously and wants to game on any of these two devices, just don't. Apple has never really been a company focused on gaming a lot, and even though the GPUs inside are very capable, they're still integrated graphics. So in terms of benchmarks, I think they're a bit faster than a 1650 Ti, which is basically a base option in terms of dedicated GPUs that's already a few years old by this point. Any Windows laptop with a modern dedicated GPU like 3000 or 2000 series from NVIDIA or the equivalent from AMD, they're just gonna blow these out of the water. So you're wasting your money if you're going for gaming. Secondly, if you are a professional who is going to use them for day-to-day work, but your work uses a lot of Windows-specific apps, that may very well be a problem. I'm going to recommend that you take a very long, hard look at a website called isappleSiliconReady.com. It's basically a fantastic resource if you want to find out what software is supported on the M1s natively and what isn't. There may very well be the case that you're using an app which is actually Windows only and you're not going to find it in the Mac ecosystem, so it may not be worth to bother. Another category of buyers that I would say should at least wait is those who are power users, either from the Windows or the Mac domains. It doesn't even matter. We know for a fact that new Macs are coming this year with the M1X chip that I've mentioned earlier. They're going to be more powerful. They're going to offer more input-output options. There's a lot of rumors that those Macs will offer even SD card compatibility, more ports, and a lot of extra benefits. So if you're looking for the most power out of your MacBook, then it may very well be worth waiting. Keep in mind though that in waiting, that those two options that are coming in terms of laptops, so the 14-inch and 16-inch MacBooks, they're probably going to be considerably more expensive than these ones. Now let's say you want to get a Mac and it's going to be your first device. And this is where it gets very, very interesting. You see, normally in the tech world, when a company puts out a new product or a new family of products, the one that you really want, that you want to go for, is the pricey one. The top of the range spec model, which has everything that you need and pretty much every feature that you want. And base models are there to usually give buyers an option if they truly want a lower priced option, alternatively to make the top of the line product more compelling. You see, base products usually have features stripped away, materials chosen and manufacturing them are usually a little bit worse, and we've seen this in smartphones even. Luckily here we have one of those very rare situations in the industry where the base option makes the most sense for most people. You see, the Air is already a fantastic machine on its own, and it's so similar to the Pro that the differences are very, very minor. and they're only gonna matter if you need the MacBook to do certain tasks. So if you're looking for a day-to-day computer, let's say you do a lot of browsing, you do work on it, you use a lot of web apps, you do presentations, a lot of emails, a lot of stuff like that, or let's say you do coursework, you do college work, the Air is going to be fantastic. It's also going to be able to do a little bit of light gaming here and there. I think it's going to be a great machine. It's going to come with a fantastic battery life, and it's going to have one more key advantage. By not having a fan, this is going to be as quiet as a phone or a laptop. Now, if your workflow is a little bit more high intensity, you're going to do tasks that require a little bit more power or more sustained performance, then the Pro is the one for you. When I bought the Pro, I weighed my option very carefully because I knew having a fan would help me a little bit in video editing. I also value the extra battery life in the Pro, which is a little bit beefier than the one in the Air. This one also comes with a bigger charger in the box, 61 watt versus a 30 watt charger. And that's about it. I think the safer bet would be the Air. Do I regret buying the Pro? Not 1 inch. I love it. I am using it every day for editing videos. It's absolutely fantastic. But the Air has its merits, and it's actually the better and smarter buy of the two. With that being said, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.